Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. Are you going through some stuff in your life? Maybe some challenges, some stress and anxiety, or do you just feel that there's more out there? Just inside, you're saying to yourself, I should be doing more. I just haven't nailed it yet. There's just something missing. All of this. Take a breath. Relax for a minute. No, I mean that. That's what we're going to talk about today. Breath work and how it is so impactful to change your life, move your life forward. I have found the premier expert when it comes to this. He's made it his life's work, breath work. And he's Jeremy Youst, and he joins us today. Welcome. How are you doing?
Good. Nice to speak with you, Steve. And I'm real excited. This is one of my favorite topics of all time, as you can imagine. And yeah, good suggestion. Take a deep breath. Fill your belly, your lungs. Let it go. Clear the brain, and off we will go.
It is scientifically proven that this does make a difference. Proper breathing, even just taking one breath. And it took me years to figure this out in my journey. How does it work? Why is just breathing intentionally, i.e., doing it the right way, make such a difference in our lives?
Right. Well, let's look at it this way. 70% of the energy that your body requires comes through the air that you breathe. So if you want more energy, breathe more fully. That's the simplest answer. Also, another 70% of the toxins. Now, it really depends on, some scientists and carbon dioxide, but 70% approximately of the toxins in your body get released through the exhale. The rest is biological, skin, and so forth, right? And so, just from that perspective, you want less toxins from the food you eat or from the environment or whatever, and you want more energy, take a few deep breaths every now and then, like how about 10 times a day. And then in addition to that, what breath does is it helps to sort of bring you back to this present moment. So that if you're in a meeting and you've got 3 or 4 things going on and it's kind of overwhelming your left brain, you're like, oh man, this is really tense, this is stressful, then, take a deep breath and just relaxing the exhale, which is what we mostly emphasize in this form of conscious breathing, or conscious connected breathing is sometimes called in the therapeutic version of it. That, mostly it's about bringing awareness to the fact that you have more control over your body and how it feels than you're taught, than most people know. And that when you breathe, for example, we're going to maybe do an exercise, you may breathe 10, 12 times, that it's kind of like an eraser on a chalkboard. I know that's old fashioned, but, it kind of wipes the slate clean. Then lastly, I would say breath work, the kind of breath work that I do, is therapeutic. And this involves a whole lot of different energy systems, mostly prana or chi, electromagnetism and gravitation, that all of these areas sort of in a fractal basis, that like a homeopathic dose plugs into what I call the universal systems of energy. And that helps to shift the memories that you have stored in your fascial or connective tissue in a way to kind of peel back the layers through this therapeutic breath work of the stuff that you started with, all the way back to how you were born and what happened in the first 10 minutes of your life, and then the first 3 years or 4 years of your life, and so forth. So, and the last thing to say about that, there are 3 real branches of breath work, okay? There's the physiological performance branch, like Wim Hof and others. There's the yogic pranayama, which means the movement of the prana, or the working on the way the prana moves through the body, the postures, and the breathing. So that's more the Hindu Eastern tradition. And in the middle is this kind of big, huge stew of breath for improvement, self-improvement. And that's what I do all the way to the deepest level, which is healing trauma. And I'm a sort of a therapist and a trauma specialist in that regard. And that journey has been fascinating because, and that's probably one of the questions we'll address later, is what do you mean breath heals trauma? What are you talking about? And believe it or not, having been a living, breathing example of that, I can be the first to attest to it. And the over 8,000 sessions, 3-hour sessions that I've done has just confirmed that over and over again. Okay, so there's a long answer
Wow.
to your question.
Gotta tell you, I've done energy healing, been the recipient of, not practicing it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I prescribe to what energy is and how it can help us deal with those traumas that you're referring to, even
Hmm.
going back to childhood, 0 to 7, and all of that.
Yeah.
Had no idea that just proper breathing and those techniques can make that difference.
Yeah.
No idea. Wow.
Right.
Game
Right.
changer.
Yeah. So, number one is breath is awareness. Breath enhances awareness.
Hmm.
I kind of have this 4-stage model that I call the transcending: attend, intend, extend, and transcend, that I use in training my students and individuals one-on-one. And the first one, attend, means you're bringing your attention on what's happening physiologically in your body into one of the few systems, if not one of the only systems in your body that has both subconscious and conscious determinants. Okay, so the back of your skull, the base, the top of the spine, is your brain stem. Okay, and these little structures, the medulla oblongata and the pons, regulate the pH in your blood, and when you need a certain more acidity or more alkalinity, it will change how you're breathing to accommodate to that homeostatic level of pH, which is about 7.4. When I say take a deep breath, Steve, you literally are going millions of years of evolution to your middle prefrontal cortex, one of the 9 functions of which is body regulation and breathing. So when I say take a deep breath, you're literally going into who we are as human beings. Right. And that, what will you put your attention on, grows. We know this. We've heard this from Joe Dispenza and a lot of other teachers. So by putting your attention on that, and then with a little additional instruction to sort of mimic how your body is designed to breathe, it starts to have these amazing effects. Okay. So that's just the attention part. The second part is intending, like, oh, I would like to use this breath to heal my relationship, or my stress around my relationship with my mother or my father, kind of thing.
Hmm.
That by putting your intention, it kind of sets up a vacuum in the universe where the evolutionary forces of trying to get all physical things to their best possible evolution, that energy also includes human beings. So you start plugging into this evolutionary consciousness of, yeah, I want to improve my systems. I want to improve how I function. The third thing is X10, and that's the action. That's, X10. That's where we do the techniques or the exercise or whatever to perform and follow that intention. And the last thing is transcend, which is that stage where who we used to be and what we used to believe is as reality transcends through that higher consciousness and higher energy of prana, so that you literally become a different person. So there's my sort of foundational, the platform of how I look at breath work.
All from breathing.
All from breathing. Yeah.
Unbelievable. Uh, wow. So I want to go back to one thing
Yep.
that you said, setting the intention for the breath. Is it almost like, and I've heard too, if you're going to meditate many times, if you want a certain outcome, you set the intention. All right, I'm going to
Hmm.
meditate on making a decision for work. What pick any hypothetical situation.
Yeah.
Are you doing something similar? when it comes to your breath work?
Yes, in the way I was taught about intention, and there's two things. There's intention, which is kind of like the physical, specific, this is what I want. And there's this thing that the Native American elders that I worked with and the shamanic elders called intent, which is kind of a bigger, multi-dimensional area of when consciousness is engaged or focused, conscious CFA, conscious focal attention, it energizes this, again, it's an evolutionary force, this idea that we as conscious beings can direct that consciousness towards what we want. And this is the essence of what Joe Dispenza does in his meditations oftentimes. Besides the techniques, he then also says, what do you want? What is it that you're really wanting to manifest? And I have an exercise called quantum breathing exercise, which is relaxation, getting your body focused, and then moving towards, wow, this is what it's going to feel like when I get what I want, because the body doesn't know that what it's feeling is future or past. It thinks it's happening now. So if you can tap into the feeling of what I want, like I'm going to get this, I don't know, I'm going to sell a bunch of stuff and get a lot of money, whatever, and it's going to feel so good, and feel empowered. The body suddenly thinks it's happening now. And this is one of the keys to utilizing consciousness in a much more effective way than we're taught, for example, in schools. So that's intent. And intention is sort of like that I want to have more peacefulness in my life, right? So when I'm starting a therapeutic session, most of the breath workers will help a client formulate an intent or an intention. And that will go in. And the way I was taught, it's like I said before, it's like a vacuum. When you ask a question, the universe abhors a vacuum. It wants to fill in the vacuum. Or if you make an intent, it wants to fulfill that intent because you're plugging into this, what I call this evolutionary energy, which in breath work, I've come to call body breathing interactive intelligence, or BBII or BBQ, because everybody likes a good Barbie. Okay. Body breathing interactive intelligence, and that's the interactive, relational, and intentional performance of an open, healthy breath, and these various ways to release energy blocks in the body that then lead someone to a different state, a transcendent state of consciousness. And believe it or not, a lot of breath work, a lot of people experience breath work, these deeper sessions. It's like the, psychedelic experimentations right now, or having an ayahuasca experience for me, I had 2 of those experiences and it changed my life forever. And I knew I was going to be a breath worker from those 2 experiences.
When you say those experiences, are you referring to using psychedelics, or are you referring to breath work?
Yeah.
Wow.
I call them go to God experiences, and swimming with dolphins in Key Largo in Florida, and then going to do this breath work in the Konakai Resort. We'd go back and forth because dolphins are conscious breathers. Okay. They don't breathe autonomically. So if you put them under respiration or, under anesthesia, they die. You need to have a respirator. That means every breath they take is a choice to live. They shut down one side of the brain, and the left side, let's say, takes over respiration, and they shut that side. They don't sleep. They can't sleep. They don't have autonomic breathing. And then they have the other side. Now, what are they? They're these incredibly intelligent creatures that play 85% of the time. 15% of the time is protection and food. 85% of the time they're having fun on the planet in the oceans, and they don't have opposable thumbs or iPhones. Okay. So with that experience, going then to breathe, suddenly I found myself going through where they send the pulses, the sonar out into a white room, and there was no problem in the universe. It was all white, all relaxed.
Fascinating. And I know that breathing, breath work, it's important. It's, I call it a reset button, Control Alt Delete on your Windows computer.
That's it.
It's a fresh start. Even in a split second.
Yep.
How did you, Jeremy, get to where you are now? This journey, where did it
Yep.
begin and
Yep.
to the point where you're showing people how to breathe properly and
Yeah.
change their lives?
Well, it actually started in Sedona, of all places. How shocking. And I was on Airport Mesa, and at night I saw this star Sirius, one of my favorite stars, a dolphin star, cetacean star, fall out of the sky. I'm like, what? And I realized a shooting star came from that and then dropped down. The next day, I met an animal communicator who worked with tigers and dolphins. She looked at me and said, "You need to swim with the dolphins and do breath work with my friend Kim Rosen." I'm like, what? I
Hmm.
got back to my new age retail store that I had after the trip. And a woman walks in and says, "You need to go swim with the dolphins." I'm like, okay. So I did. Had that experience that I just shared, another one 12 miles off at Key West, waist deep in on a little island atoll kind of thing. And I became one cell in an electrolyte stew that covered the earth called the ocean. And the ocean then became the cosmic web. I became one with the whole universe. Those two experiences then led me to a training that led me to two more trainings. There are various breathwork trainings around the world at that time in the 90s. And then it led me to an international conference in Wisconsin where I met all my colleagues. And what I mean by that is in 2005, I joined one of the two main international organizations in the world, the Global Professional Breathwork Alliance. And that then plugged me in, just what a gift, to some of the best breath trainers and workers in the world. You know, from Australia to South America to the West Coast to Europe, whatever. And that then broadened my knowledge of this thing called breath work. And then I went on a deep dive into being trauma informed and went to some trauma conferences with Bessel van der Kolk. And then I taught at the Psychotherapy Network Symposium in Washington, D.C., where I met all these other people that were doing their different healing pathways. And we were all similar in the ways that we were performing this with individuals and groups. That was it for me. And I began doing trainings. I did 17 two-year trainings, several which in Ireland. And that gave me the experience of having to teach people how to be breathwork practitioners. 400 hours, 2 years is the certification. The
Wow.
last thing is the last 2 years of the GPBA, I redesigned the international breathwork standards for practitioners. That was a 2-year project, volunteer, and it got me to really, take a deep dive into what does it take to have someone like you learn how to do this art form. And it's guided by the Australian system, which is probably the most advanced system of breath work in the world, and got me to where I am today.
Wow. And your dad and your granddad had
Emphysema.
some kind of influence on you.
Yeah. So, my dad lifting his shoulders, trying to get as much air as possible. And of course, in the medical system, never taught how to breathe diaphragmatically, which is 2/3 of how your body is supposed to breathe. So I watched him basically drown throughout high school, and he died when I was 18. And then later, my grandfather, who smoked every day since he was 7, also died of emphysema. And those things, my father, it was so traumatic. I mean, he was an alcoholic as well, and it was, all like typical, he was a madman. Okay, he was a madman. That show was written about my father's advertising agency, literally. So that kind of gives you the culture of what I grew up in. And I thought, wow, how am I going to free up all this, the grief, the anger, the fear, the abuse, whatever. And that was what came up and worked through in my breathwork trainings.
Uh, there's a lot of parallels here, and I have to share them because
Okay. Yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
believe the universe shows up, puts you in situations.
Yep.
So my dad passed a couple of years, literally 3 years after yours did. I didn't have a great relationship with him. Side
Yep.
note, I own an advertising agency, but that's irrelevant. But you said it, I'm going to bring it up.
Okay.
My dad told me two things that I always remembered. And again,
Yep.
I wasn't very close with him. My parents got divorced when I was much younger. Learn how to read and breathe. And
Oh
he
my
would say,
goodness.
especially the breathing thing. And as a kid, I had, anxiety and
Yep, yep,
a lot of
yep,
that. And
yep.
he would say, take a deep breath, hold it in. And it wasn't like he was a therapist or
Yeah, yeah,
super
yeah.
insightful. He worked in an engineering plant, but he said those things, and I remembered them when I needed them decades. I mean, decades later.
Yeah,
That stuff
yeah,
as you're a
yeah,
kid, you're
yeah.
just like, man, whatever, shut up. Side note again, and then we'll move forward, but the parallels are interesting. You're a
Yeah.
twin. You're a twin, right?
I'm an identical twin. Yeah.
I'm a twin as well.
Are you
Fraternal.
first or second?
Fraternal.
You're but or first or second born?
Uh, I am firstborn.
Yeah, that's what I am. 5 minutes. And when I was born, they didn't know my mother was having twins.
Wow.
So I came out and I had this in just infinite amount of time, maybe a minute. Well, he was born 5 minutes later, but I was alone in the world and no one knew that I had a half of myself, my brother, was still in the womb. That turned out through several deep breath sessions to discovering that that was a big imbalance, sort of, I don't know, trauma's too serious, but a big orientation, like how could I leave my brother behind? And these are not rational things. These come up in sessions where it's like, OMG,
Yeah.
this
Yeah.
explains so much of why I feel guilty in relationships. I mean, it just goes on and on and on.
But we don't realize this stuff.
We
And even
don't realize it.
even the stuff in the womb or just
Yep,
out,
yep, yep, yep.
or 5 years later, or 6, 7 years later,
Right,
all that stuff that,
right.
I mean, when they say you're acting like a child, you,
Yes,
you are acting like a child in an
yes,
adult's
yes.
world because you haven't moved on from that point.
Right,
Um,
right.
One other thing, and
Yeah,
I
go
think it's
ahead.
weird, but it's not.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
this is the third time today that somebody has mentioned something related to the ocean and has used the term one with the ocean. And I'm going to be very honest here. It it pulls at my inner
Deep
being.
breath. Yeah, inner
It
being.
is what I
Yeah,
always want.
yeah.
It's calling.
It's calling. Yeah, right.
It's calling.
Right. Yeah. There's
Yeah.
several people who, scientists, researchers who think that, one of the species that we came out of was from a water planet. And there's who knows if that's true, but there are some interesting correlations between evolution on land and evolution in the ocean that I think are more connected because I didn't know any of this, but after I breathe people and I watch them having deep memories that they shouldn't have,
Right.
about
Right.
oceanic situations, I'm like, there's something to this, I think,
Yeah. I anything is possible. And in my journey, which changed about 3 years ago,
Okay.
I have a different way of looking at everything. I say nothing surprises me.
Yeah. Yeah. This is
Nothing
good.
surprises me.
Yeah. This is good. Yeah.
Anything is possible. Have
Yeah.
an open mind. And wow. I've done podcasts before,
Yeah.
considerable number of them
Yeah.
related to breathing and the
Okay.
importance of it and breath work and all of that. Never to this level to see
Okay.
how important it is in our
Yeah.
lives and
Yep.
how therapeutic it can be. Yeah. All right. So we should breathe intentionally and properly, and it can reset us and all
Right.
that.
Right.
Never looked at it through the eyes of therapy.
Right.
Wow.
Right. Right. And the interesting thing is that an open, healthy breath, which is what I teach early on to students and clients. What does it look like? What do you mean? I breathe fine. I breathe all the time.
Right.
But how many breathe an open, healthy breath? Oh, less than 5%. And what's interesting is it's both ends to the middle. You work toward the physical process of respiration. If you work and adjust it toward an open, healthy breath, where you can't breathe an open, healthy breath is where your suppressions are. It's where your stuff lives,
Mm.
especially electromagnetically held in the connective tissue. So it's interesting. And then when you start to open up the breath, then suddenly you have access to kind of I don't know, it's like an expansion of time that includes the past and the future. It's beyond cortical function. I think it's a deeper kind of process, kind of a body-mind process, where suddenly you're a witness and you can see, OMG, this is when this thought, this core belief, life isn't safe. You can't trust men. I mean, the first man that I met held me up by my ankles and spanked me on my butt. Like, welcome to planet Earth. Oh,
Right,
yeah. This
right.
kind of human I can't trust. You see?
And how ironic or not, the reason that Spain came
Yeah,
was to get you to breathe.
exactly. I know.
Like crazy.
I know,
We're
it's
out of
crazy.
time. I used to
Okay,
keep
go
going.
ahead.
I have
All right.
so much to talk about. Next time we get together, we're going to
Okay.
delve into the breath work
Good.
and some techniques that we can use. Jeremy, I know there's a lot for somebody to digest here. It can be a little woo-woo. Once you realize it, what a game changer. How can we find you? How do we connect?
Yeah, I'm at Jeremy at powerofbreath.com. My organization is the Power of Breath Institute, which I formed in 2001. Co-founded in 2001, and my information is on there. The website's a little bit old. It looks like I'm still doing trainings. I've done, I think the universe wants me to do other things in passing the baton about breath work, and that is working with some of these international teachers and helping other younger, like I just started working with a woman who does trainings, Breath of Gold, and it's a 9-month training, and she wants to go deeper. And, I'm the man for the job. So
Wow.
that's kind of where I'm in Shelburne Falls, Massachusetts. It's a 4-hour train ride to Greenfield. So people come from New York and all over.
Wow. Amazing.
Yeah.
Truly amazing.
Good.
And
Well, thank you.
when you think of it, blood is important in our bodies. You go for a blood test, got to make sure blood is circulating.
Yeah,
We don't think of it in the same way as air, oxygen.
exactly.
We don't look at it that way, but it's
Right.
doing
Yeah.
essentially a lot of the same things in
Yes.
terms of getting rid of toxins. And also, I could keep going.
Yeah, yeah.
Fabulous
Okay.
talking with you.
Yeah, you bet, Steve. It's awesome.
Yeah, learned a lot, and looking
Love it.
forward next time we get together.
Okay, you bet. Take care.
Thanks. We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
Mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.